changing fashion perception in Africa. Fashion can effectively be used to pass on relevant messages to different groups of people in society. Meet Gloria Wavamunno, who is changing people's mindsets through her fashion. This is at Galore.
Hi, I'm Gloria Wavamunno and this is City TV. Where did Gloria Wavamunno, where did she come from? Where did she evolve from? I was I always kind of say cliche, but I don't think it's cliche because there can be so many kinds of artists, but I was a very shy, quiet child. I was very observant. Through that observation, I guess it kind of made me very more in tune with who I was and my senses and trying to figure out what they were. And, having a parent that was my mother who was very I think also quite observant in her own characteristics to kind of sense, okay, she needed to just kind of guide me and also listen to what I wanted. And she noticed from a young age, because my mom used to be a tailor with my aunts. My aunts are still tailors for Mowa Designs, which has been in business for the past 35 years. So she was first working with there in the beginning when I was younger, and she noticed I wasn't very playful with other kids, and I was very uncomfortable, so she would take me to work after those scenarios at school, and she noticed how much I kind of gravitated towards fabrics, and I gravitated towards what my aunts were doing, and felt comfort, and that kind of maybe hit on the fact that I knew that this was maybe an art form.
For some people, it took them a lot of time to know who they wanted to be. Gloria Wavamunno was, however, fortunate. She knew she could be a fashion designer at a very young age.
I think I kind of first wanted to be a painter, because in all the different forms of art I was doing, and I felt comfortable. Painting and sketching felt like something I really was in tune with. And I remember being 16 and an art teacher called Mr. Smalley, he's amazing, saw me sketching, and he was like, clothes, because he knew I wanted to be an artist, so I was sketching people and clothes and animals and objects, but I wasn't sketching clothes. So he caught me on a break sketching clothes, and he was like, oh, so you want to be a designer? And I didn't understand designing, because here, as what my aunts and mom did, it was tailoring. They were making clothes for other women, what women wanted. They were bringing their papers, so I was like, what's a designer? Because in Uganda, there wasn't that understanding of a designer. And when the designer even came later on, I was much older, and it still didn't make sense. What is a designer? Do you tailor? Do you I didn't know. So he was like, no, you design pieces, of course you think up creatively of clothes, and you can produce them and you can sell them. And after he said that to me, I guess, again, my very observant character decided to research on that.
Fashion was always her passion. Her parents could not afford letting Gloria down.
I had to speak with my parents, and I said I want to go to design school. I want to go to an art school so I can learn fashion. Thank goodness that at the end it all tied together, and they were supportive, because sometimes I think it can be very difficult for African families of descent, to accept someone who wants to be an artist, because they say, oh, how are you going to make money? And that's not a serious job. There's not a lot of respect sometimes put on it. And I was very fortunate that I was stubborn enough for them to have to accept, because they realized there was nothing else I was going to be willing to do.
Her dream to become a fashion designer became even closer when she went for further studies in fashion.
I was very fortunate that I was able to study fashion marketing, and business, because I understood that structure didn't exist within Uganda. So I had to know what it was so that I could manage my business and take and grow it. So I was in Paris for a bit, and then I moved to London, and then I finished my university there. I was very fortunate throughout university. I was working for designers, I was styling, I was working for makeup companies. I was working for MAC and Bobbi Brown, and I was assisting at London Fashion Week with the production, and I was a seater and a dresser, and I just literally, I think, engulfed myself in fashion, because I understood that industry did not exist back home. And I knew I was always moving back home, because this is where I'm from, and so I wanted to get as much from the more developed industry in Europe, and through that then also I got to work with a wonderful bespoke designer called Oswald Boateng, and I learned a lot about the crafting of pieces, and not that I'd already learned from my aunts, but it was like finely tuned.
Gloria believes African fashion is broad and more educative to young generations.
In Africa, we are promoting sometimes the glamour side because it's entertainment, but there's a real side to it that is a beautiful business that educates, inspires, and puts value back into people. Because I think when you're a crafter, because that's what I think arts are, you're a craft person, whether it's a camera, a sewing machine, a paintbrush, you feel value for yourself, and you can then take that value and contribute it to other things, because this is a team.
Gloria is a recognizable figure in the fashion industry of Uganda, and she's on the move to empower women through fashion.
And I'm very aware of the sexism and unfortunately second-class status that women get in the world in general, but can sometimes also get it a bit more stronger in Africa. Even though everyone says they respect us and we raise the families, etc., women are still being unfortunately very abused and taken advantage of. And so I wanted to make a space that empowers females, not just that, oh, you're here to sew and make money, no, but and I further push creativity, which unfortunately is not supported in schools here. It's always like the act and the craft, but not the extra, which is, you make the craft, but now how do you feel the craft? And that's creativity. And so I very much am a supporter and a believer of harnessing and supporting people's creativity, and at the same time the safe space, so that as women and as evolving and as modern African women, let's have the conversations that are affecting our societies, because we can lock ourselves away in my studio and be artists for a second, but there's a real world going out there, and how do we contribute and how do we improve it,
Her designs of clothes are intended to make women feel proud of themselves.
If people look at my clothes, I'm not trying to say they're empowering. I'm just trying to say that they're armors. I definitely know I make clothes that is for arm in a way, even though they're so gentle, because I think people can see I've transitioned from kitenge, and I'm very into jerseys, because I'm following that as African women we all have beautiful different sizes, and I want to make sure that my clothes can facilitate all those wonderful shapes and sizes, because again I want to promote to women, you don't have to change, you can be who you are, you don't have to be what the man tells you or the TV tells you, which is run by a man who's showing those commercials and those marketing skills for you to buy something that isn't you. So I think even now with my clothing, the jersey, the colors are to include all women and to also make women feel strong within themselves. And again, that's why it goes back to armor. I want women to feel empowered.
There is no way you can succeed without failing in life.
I was also willing to fail, which I think sometimes a lot of people are not. They don't want to begin anything if they're not going to fail, or if it might break them or whatever. And sometimes we are such strong human beings. Don't be fearful of the fear or the failure or the breaking, because you also have the power to lift yourself up and bring yourself back. And people can see me now, but I've broken and I've failed numerous times, and this now is all of that. So I wouldn't take back all the times I was cheated or made mistakes or lost something, but it all starts with you beginning. I cannot tell you that you're not going to make mistakes or not, no, because I'm standing here and some people would say I'm a success story, or I've done well and I'm doing well, I'm growing, I'm not this thing at the end. No, I'm not at all, and I hope people don't ever assume that just because they see what I create, but they should know that if they're seeing what I create with all this value, it's because it's coming from me. I value myself.
Without inspiration, fashion could be a boring journey for Gloria. She has a couple of people she looks up to in this industry.
There were two designers that I really kind of fell in love with when I understood designing. One was Yohji Yamamoto, who's Japanese, and Alexander McQueen, who's British. And Yohji and Alexander are very different designers. Alexander's very couture and details and beading, but he's so expressive. He tells these stories in such a fantasy-esque way. And the clothes have so much heart in them. And not saying Yohji doesn't too, that's also why I love them, but they're contrasts of each other, because Yohji is so simple and about very daily existence, but it's also art. Like his clothes are like sweeps of paint brushes, but like all in one color form, because he always uses either black, white. He stays very neutral, while Alexander plays with everything depending what the theme is. He'll like go to, he'll use metal in one thing, and he'll go just to glass or beads or animal skulls and things like that, while Yoji is just a simple, basic, ready-to-wear pieces. But both men have this soul and art of telling stories about their culture and about what inspires them. Like I think Alexander McQueen is just epitome of the mix of the UK, London, multicultural fantasy creative bubble that it is. And Yoji for Japan, he's the perfect entity of nature and values and softness and identity in a calm, natural way. So both of them were very inspiring.
Her career has not been smooth throughout. Gloria faces challenges too.
Finances, sometimes it can be a really good couple of months and you're making some money and it's helping turn over and carry your studio, and then it can go silent, And then sometimes, the governmental, political stages of our country can affect businesses and things that happen to you. Sometimes life happens to your staff and they have to go or they have to evolve somewhere else. Sometimes, little, and then something that's not important, but everyone should know, just people not liking your progression, and kind of trying to sabotage it or hinder it.
Highly determined Gloria owns a fashion studio. She is running a successful fashion event in Kampala, and she is looking forward to expand them even more.
We are the pearl of Africa. We are the, beginning of man, if they say this is where the first skull was found, around this areas. And I just think there's so much potential when we believe in ourselves and stop trying to think we are the Western world. All respect to Black Americans, but we are the beginning. So we need to evolve as Africans. So I just see so much potential. We have so much raw materials, we have so much culture, we have so much music, we have so many tribes. There's just so much we can, all that to incorporate into art.